This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Know-How is brought to you by CashFly.
This episode of Know-How is brought to you by CuriosityStream, a subscription streaming service that offers over 1,400 documentaries and nonfiction series from the world's best filmmakers. Get unlimited access starting at just $2.99 a month. And for our audience, the first 2 months are completely free if you sign up at curiositystream.com/twit and use the offer code TWIT. And by DigitalOcean, simple and fast cloud hosting built for developers. Deploy an SSD cloud server in 55 seconds. Try it today for free. Visit DigitalOcean.com, and once you sign up, be sure to enter the promo code KNOWHOW in the billing section to get your $10 credit. On today's show,
Maker Faire 2016.
Welcome to Know-How. It's the Twitch show where we build, bend, break, and upgrade. I'm Father Robert Ballecer.
And I'm Bryan Burnett.
And for the next 30 to 45 minutes, we're going to show you some of the things that we've been geeking out to, so you can take them home and geek out on your own. Bryan, so good to see you.
Good to see you too.
It's been a while since we've been in this space. We've
been busy.
We repeat this pattern because we're kind of the field team now. Along
That's
with
right.
Kara,
Yeah.
we go out and we cover events like Google I/O and Maker Faire. We're doing a Lenovo event. We're going to be doing E3, I believe. So
Yeah.
often it requires us to pre-record know-hows, which means extended time away from the studio.
Which I am totally okay with, because over the last weekend we did Maker Faire, which is probably like the geekiest weekend that we could geek out on.
Now, I have to say this. Every year it gets more difficult to cover that event because you get a lot of the same artists, engineers, tinkers coming back year after year after year. And so for the special, we try not to shoot anything that we've shot in the past.
Which is very difficult to do.
Which is super difficult.
Every year seems to be an evolution, kind of a step forward from the previous year. And then this year was packed,
This
too.
year was really, really good. And this is what I love about the Maker season, that you may get to that point where you're like, oh, it's not worth covering this event anymore because we're just going to see the same people over and over. But
Or we'll just go to Burning Man and see those guys.
Precisely. But this time we saw a nice diversity of vendors. We saw some new faces. And I think that's, any maker community wants that. You don't want to see the same people again and again and again. You always want to bring fresh blood into the community.
Right, and then this year, I feel like more than the other years that we've covered, has been embracing a lot more of the spreading the knowledge.
Yes.
Because the first day we went was Friday, and that was like Kids Day. And so every booth, everything was just about interacting. Getting kids building, getting kids playing with stuff.
By the way. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And then Sunday was when we went around to like all the booths, talked to everybody. And the year previous, we had trouble. It was like, oh, we can't film anything in the halls because the halls are packed. There's too many people. And then this year, it was like, it's a little rough to film outside. Too.
It's hard to believe, but I think Maker Faire has outgrown the San Mateo County Fairgrounds.
It's started to feel that way, yeah.
Yeah, because some of the exhibits take up a lot of space, like battleships. They actually make a big lake for them to battle in. You know,
you got to wear the safety goggles and stuff.
Precisely. And then they've got like the robot combat area. Now they've got a drone combat area, a drone racing area, and then they have like all the fire exhibits. So they keep pushing those things out to the edges of the fairgrounds,
Right.
But then the rest of the fair is encroaching on that space. So at some point, something's going to have to go.
Yeah, and I mean, Google had a big presence there this year too. I mean, they've been there the previous years, but I remember it was basically the robot arm, and then they had like a couple of booths. But this year they had a big tent, and they had like the Google sign where you had to power it with pedaling and stuff. And then they had like a robot cart going around giving away safety glasses and stuff.
Fun.
Yeah, that was
fun.
cool.
One of the other things I really liked was Radio Shack for the longest time did the soldering tent. And it could have gone away when Radio Shack went away. But the people at Google said, no, we'll sponsor it. We'll do the soldering shack, because especially like on that Friday or the Saturday when the kids come in, actually not even the kids. I had 3 couples with the wife went with the husband to Maker Faire, and the husband was like a fan of the Twit TV network and would come up to me and say, can you teach my wife how to solder? It's like it's such an elementary skill to makers today that it's nice that a big company that didn't have to pick it up did actually say, okay, we're going to continue this.
Yeah, yeah. And speaking of big companies, Microsoft was there with their Internet of Things and using the Windows 10 on a Raspberry Pi, which I haven't really played with because when we have talked about in the past, I've always thought of it as just not having a GUI and you're just typing into the console to do things. But then they were showing their web interface that you would do remotely with the Raspberry Pi. And it looked pretty sweet. It
did. And it really kind of changed what I thought Microsoft wanted out of the Internet of Things. When I first heard about Windows 10, at least the IoT version of Windows 10 being able to run on a Raspberry Pi, I thought, oh, they're just jumping on the bandwagon.
Yeah, I couldn't come up with any ideas of what projects I would want to do with it.
Right, but what we heard from the representative was, yeah, there are some serious use cases where you need a more secure way to report data from a real-world object, and the fact that you can now install Windows 10 with the Noobs installer. I'm just like, okay, well, now I can choose Raspbian, I can choose another distro, I can choose Windows, all from the same package. I like that.
Yeah, I think my favorite part was that when you start integrating these sensors into the Raspberry Pi, and then you use the Windows 10 Azure services and stuff, you really get that data acquisition powerhouse that, like, I haven't had projects available to do with the normal Raspberry Pi, you know.
Yeah, so we'll see that. And actually, speaking of that kind of power and that kind of coding, one of the stops that we made at the very start of the fair, actually on Friday, was to Intel. Intel had a booth that had been dedicated to a show that they're co-sponsoring called America's Next Great Maker, which we're actually going to talk about on a later show. I want to bring it to our audience because I think some of you out there might love to be on a new show sponsored by Intel, building things for the internet. But stopping by Intel, we did manage to find the only booth they had dealing with drones, and we thought, of course, we have to bring it to the audience. So folks, without further ado, here is Dronesmith.
One of the trends that has been shepherded by makers over the last few years has been the rise of the drone. That's right, the ubiquitous little craft that everyone loves or hates. I'm here at Dronesmith Technology speaking with Seth, who's going to explain why today's drones are not yesterday's toys. Seth, what is this?
Thank you for asking, Robert. This is Lucy. Lucy is the next generation of flight controller. It features both the flight controller portion as well as an onboard computer. The onboard computer is actually the Intel Edison, and this enables the drone to actually be an IoT device. So you can more or less be accessing it from anywhere in the world, and you don't actually need to be in the physical presence of the drone itself. This is huge for the commercial industry, where you need to start doing more autonomous functions, and you need the drone to have more intelligence and more processing power. And that's what yesterday's flight controller lacked, was that processing power. Now, some companies such as DJI have come out and made a couple of computers that go on board, but they're not all on the same chip and they're not, or on the same board, and they're not all small. This is a nice small package that we sell, and it really enables you to realize any application, any project you want. We're kind of making drones like smartphones in a way. So when you first had smartphones come out, they were cool and they had all these nice built-in features, but what really made smartphones so big was all the apps that were born from it. And so what we really do is we enable developers to build apps on top of our platform so you can go to any drone out there and really change the world.
All right, Seth, now I've got a pretty savvy audience, and a lot of them are going to be wondering, why would I want to go with something like this, a more advanced board, a more complicated board that allows for dev, if a $15 KK is going to be enough to keep their craft in the air? What specifically will Lucy allow them to do that I couldn't do with a dumb board with an Atmel chipset?
Well, it really depends what market you're going at. If you're doing something as a hobbyist, then I would say, honestly, go with that $15 board. It will work, and that is what you should do. If you're actually going out to build a real project, you need a stable flight control that has redundancies built in. It's very important to go for something such as this. And the reason why is safety. You have the flight controlling portion, which every flight controller has, and you also have a second processor. So when you actually write code on that second processor and it crashes inevitably, you won't fall out of the air. And that's something that all commercial products need, is the ability not to fall out of the air just because their flight controller or their application crashes. That shouldn't happen. So we have redundancies built in, and that's very important for anyone that's looking to enter the commercial market.
All right, now let's get down to the brass tacks here. Tell me, what would my pilots be able to do? Let's say they start developing with Lucy. They've got the Edison chipset on board. They've got their 450 class Alien X quadcopter that they've created. what are they going to create? What would you say would be the market for Lucy?
You know, that is actually a very hard question because drones are still in their infancy. We're starting to come out of that infancy, but it's still very much there. What you create is up to you. Anything from, let's see, one good application is detecting endangered wildlife and making sure that they're doing good and thriving populations. You could actually use it to, for instance, pick up dog poop in a yard. You can do so many different things. But one thing I want to mention about Lucy also is that's not limited to drones. We actually currently have a partner we're working with that's using it on a boat, Land Rovers, fixed wing, all these different applications you can now get into easily. And before, a lot of those were military grade aircraft and drones. And now that's no longer going to be the case. So really, it's just your imagination that's the limit. So all those crazy ideas, you can now actually do them. And that's what's really exciting to me. That's why I love this.
I love that. Now, Seth, if they wanted to find out more about Dronesmith Technologies, if they wanted to find out where they could get a Lucy, where should they go?
We have a website, dronesmiths.io or dronesmith.io. And then we also, it's taped down. We also have our Facebook and our Twitter they can go ahead and follow, and they can find out more there.
There you have it, folks. Thank you very much for sharing your technology. Thank you for showing us the future of intelligent craft. If you've got an idea for an autonomous project, well, then Dronesmith Technologies and Intel Edison has got a bright idea for you.
I think that's going to be the future of the more advanced flight controllers. You have to do a split level logic. So there's like the bare minimum to keep the craft in the air. That's the autonomic functions. It will keep position. It will respond to the receiver. It will send telemetry. And then you've got the mission computer. That's what's 3DR tried to perfect with the Solo.
Right.
And the mission computer can crash. It can mess up, and it won't bring down the craft. I think that's going to be the future of sort of homebrew dev.
Definitely, having those fail-safes integrated. But after the interview, I talked to Seth a little bit more because he was talking about a 4G shield that you could also add to the Edison.
Right.
I was like, that's cool, but like, what would the application be? And it was right when they were talking about, do you remember the cow that they had there?
Yes.
And the cow tracking? So he was saying, like, what if you're a rancher, you have one of these drones, you're not on your ranch, but you pull out your phone and you like connect to your drone, it takes off and it starts tracking your cattle while you're like, sitting on the beach somewhere.
Maybe you could even become a cow herder.
It's a cow herder with drones.
A drone corgi.
And then, what if you had like a fleet of drones herding your cows around? I don't know, or at least keeping track of them.
Or actually, I heard, I'll be talking about another example of the use of this kind of intelligence later on KFI radio. But there's a group that's using drones to send USB drives filled with Western movies and TVs and offline versions of Wikipedia into North Korea. So it's pre-programmed. There's no pilot. It just knows go in 20 miles, land, drop, come back. I mean, that's kind of cool.
That is pretty cool.
It's drones for freedom.
That's right. Spreading the knowledge.
Spreading the knowledge. So speaking of spreading the knowledge, I can think of no better way to spread the knowledge than with the first sponsor of this episode of Know How.
Definitely.
Folks, I know that you love Twit. I mean, that's why you're watching us right now. We know that you love videos online. We know that you get your entertainment from the internet. It's a new world, and you're all cord cutters. And guess what? There's a group out there that's willing to celebrate with you. It's CuriosityStream. Now, CuriosityStream it's a streaming service. Well, we've had those. But it's a streaming service that caters to geeks. The idea is to give you ad-free, high-quality documentaries, science, technology, engineering, and inspirational videos so that you know-it-alls, you makers, your DIYers can, change the world. Now, CuriosityStream is the world's first ad-free, non-fiction streaming service founded by John Hendricks, the founder of Discovery Communications. So I think he knows a little bit about what it takes to get our minds moving. They have over 1,400 titles and 600 hours of content. It's available in 196 countries worldwide on platforms like the web app, Roku, Android, iOS, Chromecast, Amazon Fire, Amazon Kindle, and Apple TV. They have a wide variety of science and technology content, plus nature, history, and many more topics. All the programming that us geeks love to watch, love to hear. I always have something running whenever I'm doing a project. It's my way of calming my mind and opening it to, thinking about things some way I haven't before. They have over 50 hours of 4K content, so if you're looking for a way to test your new monitor or your new machine, this is a great way to do it. One of the largest 4K libraries on the internet. In addition to documentaries, they also have interviews and lectures, including one with Stephen Hawking, the Universe. It's a series where Stephen Hawking traces the history of astronomical theories and technology. The Next World, featuring Michio Kaku, talking about the future of technology, virtual reality, artificial intelligence, and other big technological questions. They've got the human face of big data for anyone who wants to get into analytics and what they can do for the future. Currently exclusive on CuriosityStream, along with the road to the singularity, which is a topic I love to hear about. Jason Silva and other experts explore the inevitable arrival of superhuman intelligence in an original documentary. Now, they've got monthly and annual plans available, with them starting at just $2.99 a month, less than a cup of coffee, or the cost of one title on competing on-demand platforms. Folks, here's what we want you to do. If you love knowledge, and we know you do because you're watching us, check out curiositystream.com/twit. That's curiositystream.com/twit. And use the promo code TWIT during sign-up to get unlimited access to the world's top documentaries and nonfiction series, completely free for the first 60 days. That's 2 entire months free of one of the largest 4K libraries around, of one of the best collections of science, technology, art, and history content designed for geeks. Just go to curiositystream.com/twit and use the offer code TWIT at sign-up. And we thank CuriosityStream for their support of Know How. All right, Brian, we've got some questions that we wanted to get to. First of all, I'd like to point this out. This is how baby drones are born. A bit of drone on drone.
You've never seen Batteries Not Included, have you? Because that's what I've always imagined.
That's a good flick.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite movies. And then the little robots come out.
That. Well, of course, we're going to be talking about drones, and this is why we're doing it on a Thursday. First of all, I want to point something out. After Maker Faire, because, and we'll show some footage of this later on, we were at the Aerial Sports League, and I was watching them zoom around their track.
Oh, that was fun. That was pretty cool.
It was good piloting, but one of the things that's really difficult, and anyone out there who's flown drones before knows this, on obstacle courses, drones are incredibly agile going in most directions, forward, back, left, right, and you can rise. I mean, if you've got enough thrust, you can punch that thing out. What's difficult is going down, because especially if you've got inertia, your props still want to spin, so it kind of feathers down. Now, some of the more advanced pilots will actually flip their quads upside down and then flip it back.
Gun it. And
I'm not that good.
That's Maverick style, yeah.
Right. So what I've done is I reprogrammed the firmware on my ESCs to do a brake. So when I go to idle, it doesn't just let the props free spin. It actually sends like reverse pulses to stop the motor.
Which isn't hard on the motor, but on the props.
Yeah, take a look at this. So this is why you need to buy some high quality props. So you can't tell, but this, I was practicing yesterday, and that...
Oops. Wow.
It landed safely, so that nut actually held it long enough, but I mean, that wasn't much. And this did not hit anything. This was just from the sheer exertion of me messing around with prop speeds.
Wow. Okay. So, jeez, I did not know that. I thought you hit something.
No,
that's bad.
That's bad.
That's just from, so it's rotating and then
just stopping it.
Stopping it. So the force of the air is still just pushing.
Well, I mean,
really hard
remember, these things are rotating really, really quickly. So even though they don't weigh that much, if you put a hard stop, they try to tear themselves apart.
So you're saying carbon fiber props then?
No, I will probably have to go to carbon fiber at some point.
Really? Okay.
But we're not here to talk about carbon fiber props. We're here to answer a question that came from our audience. Brian, what do we got?
All right, this one comes from Mr. Rockenbach. He asks, what considerations should I be aware of if I wanted to use 4S LiPo instead of 3S on my KH-FPV 250?
Very good question, Mr. Rockenbach, and actually we've got a really simple answer. These are KH250. These were spec'd out. This is what we built on the show. We built one for Brian and one for me. If you want to use a 4S battery rather than a 3S battery, you don't have to do anything.
They're just, it's already built in, because the only thing that you would need to change is the flight controllers,
No,
right?
not even the flight controller.
If you, yeah.
We built these craft so that they would take from 2S all the way up to 4S. So you're good to go. However, that's not what you asked. Your question is, what considerations should you have? And there are actually a few things you should consider anytime you're thinking about switching any craft from 3S to 4S. Alex, if you go to that first link, and yes, I know a lot of people are having issues with ready-to-fly quads. I'm not here to defend them. It's just this is what we use, so this is what we're showing off. This was the ESC that we sourced for the project. It's a $10, 30-amp ESC. The reason why we got such a large one was because we wanted to be able to upgrade it in the future.
Right.
Use this in future projects. But this supports, if you scroll down, Alex, it supports 3S and 4S batteries. See, it says right there about 4 lines down, 3S and 4S capable. That's the first thing that you need to check. Your BEC, the battery eliminator circuit on the ESC, needs to be able to provide power to my flight controller and my receiver.
Right.
Well, normally when it does that, you're going to be limited to 3S and 4S. Okay. Some are limited to 3S. You need to take a look at that. If they cannot handle 4S, do not plug a 4S battery into it hoping that it will work. It might, but it also might blow everything out. Yeah. Now, if you wanted higher cell counts, so for example, I have one craft that's a septicopter. It's weird, it's an experimental, but it uses a 6S battery. And I had to use what's called a opto type. So there is no battery eliminator circuit in the ESC. It's not directly linked to power like this is. In order to cut down on the amount of interference that goes back into the radio.
Right.
And then you need a separate battery eliminator circuit to power the receiver and the flight controller.
Oh, okay.
In that case, you need to check the rating of the BEC.
The BEC.
Remember like the UBEC that we've been using on our Arduinos? The one that we've been using can handle anywhere between 2S and, what is it, like 30 volts, like 10S. Right. So you're not gonna have a problem with that. But if you've got a cheaper BEC that can only handle 3S, take a look at it.
Okay.
The other consideration is this, Alex, if you go to that second link, this is the motor that we used in the Know-How 250. It's the RTF 2208 2300 kV. I love this motor. There's so much power. And if you scroll down, Alex, you'll see that it also supports 3S and 4S right there. To 2S to 4S LiPos. So the motor is not going to have any problems going up to 4S. The ESC will have no problems going to 4S. So those are the first two pieces to check.
Okay, cool. And they look nice too. I like these motors.
I do. And also remember that the way that we spec this out, all of the wiring, the harness will handle 4S just fine. I knew.
Right, used like thicker gauge wiring and stuff.
Wiring. Yeah. I knew that some of you were going to want to test the limits of flying, and so we made sure that these were upgradable. Now let's look at some of the more practical parts, because if the hardware is fine, you are still going to have to do a few things. The first thing you're going to want to do, actually, let's prove. So let's put our money where our mouth is.
Okay.
We said that this will work just fine on 3S or 4S. So here we've got, I'll put yours over here. If we smoke one, we're going to smoke mine. This is the Know-How 250. This is a 3S battery. So this is that standard blue color 2.2 milliamp hour or amp hour battery. Do this, like so. Whoop. And then arm it. Oh, wait, it's still thinking.
Beep, beep.
Come on, do your thing.
It's been sleeping for a while.
There we go. So this works just fine on 3S.
Wow. It's hard to tell, but these motors are spin. Ah!
And folks, again, we'd like to reiterate, please, please, please always take your props off.
Yes.
Whenever you power up indoors. And then this is a 4S battery. This is actually one of the ones that I use for the beer lifter.
Boy.
This is a big boy. This provides a whole heck of a lot of power at once.
It doesn't even need props to fly with that battery.
Okay, and come on, settle.
Give it a second to think, Padre.
No.
It's just a little drone.
I can still.
You can see the little light blinking.
So 3S, 4S, no worries. But it does change the characteristics, because remember, the rating on your motor, the kV, is the number of times it's going to turn per volt that you give it.
Right.
So if you give it more volts, it's going to be turning faster. And the first thing that's going to affect is it's going to affect the way that where the hover point of your craft is. So what you'll have to do is you'll have to change the throttle curve. Let me go into our throttle curve here.
Which, this is the FlySky controller.
This is the FlySky controller. Super easy one. But this one is set for 3S. So at 3S, my hover point is going to be about 50% throttle.
Right.
So I know at 50% throttle, that's about where the unladen craft is going to want to just hover in the air. So what I've done is I've widened up that area so that I get as much sort of sweet spot as possible. See how that line is?
Yeah.
Because I want to give myself like a nice range from here to here on the stick where it's going to hover. Otherwise, it will always be going up or down. I don't like that.
Right, but on 4S, it's more
4S
going to be like 30%.
Yeah,
or...
that hover point is going to be like down here.
Yeah.
So I'm going to have to change that curve or the craft goes out of control.
Right, so don't just gun it off the bat, you know, when you're switching out batteries.
Or gun it and
Or
then rebuild it. That's what I enjoy. Because I love that sound of, by the way, you'll notice on the Know-How 250 that when you really, really gun it, it makes a loud, shrill sound. That's actually not good. That's cavitation of the props. That's just wasted energy, but I love that sound.
The sound of it.
Okay, I'm silly like that. The other thing that you want to know is typically when you are going up on voltages, you want to go down on props. Now, it's not an issue for the Know-How 250 because this can only use 5-inch props. Anything more than a 5-inch prop is going to impact the frame. So it's 5-inch props all the way. But if you go to something like this was our Alien X build, this actually will work on 4S. In fact, most of the time I fly on 4S. But when I'm flying 3S, I typically use 8-inch props or 9-inch props. When I'm flying 4S, I'll go down to like 7-inch or 6-inch props.
And that's just because they'll spin so much faster?
They'll spin so much faster, and if I overprop, I can actually dump more energy into the motor than it's supposed to have.
Right.
It won't destroy it, because I've run 10-inch props on a 4S battery on this, but what you will find out is the motor gets incredibly hot.
Yeah,
and that's a really good way to
don't kill your motors.
Yeah, shorten the life of your motor. So I think that answers the question. Bottom line, go ahead, play with 4S. You'll actually like it. The Know-How 250, if you've mastered it at 3S, at 4S it is crazy again.
Yeah, they're fun.
Yeah, and they're hard to kill.
Which you have tried over and over again.
Which is good. All right, what else have we got?
All right, this next one comes from Derek. He asks, in some of the videos, I see the Arduino in a waterproof case. Are those similar to the OtterBox 1000 series that are now discontinued? Did you just drill a hole into them for the wires? Any waterproof case recommendations?
Yes, yes, yes. And actually, you are dead on. So this is the case I love using for my projects. I got a ton of these from CES. I have probably about 30 of them left in my kit.
Wait, these were a swag thing?
These are just swag things. And the OtterBox people knew me. They're like, oh, how many do you like? I'm like, how
all
many
of
do you
them?
have?
The exact number of the model, so 1,000?
Well, it was one of these. It was like the end of a show.
So they had leftovers.
Yeah, they're like, hey, just take this box. I'm like, all right.
But they discontinued these?
They discontinued these. Unfortunately, Otter.
Because you took them all.
I did. They didn't have any left.
Yeah.
No, Otter is one of these companies that has kind of fallen to, well, the phone tragedy. All the money to make in cases is now in making cases for phones and tablets.
Right.
And so what they realized was, like, although these were nice and geeks loved them, they were selling 100 of phone cases for every one of these that they were selling. It just wasn't economically viable for them to make these anymore. Thankfully, if you go on eBay, there's still a large supply. In fact, I would suggest you get a bunch of these. I love them. I paid on eBay, I paid like $5 each for a group of 10 of them.
Oh.
But they're fantastic because they're incredibly durable. They're watertight, and yes, I just drill a hole through them in order to run my leads, and then I'll seal it back up with sealant.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
So Otter has several different sizes that I really like. This is the ones that I use for the smaller displays, the smaller projects. They are all airtight. So if you want to put something out in weather, this is a really good option to use. I've used this a lot for the Arduino because the full-size Arduino Uno actually fits in here along with my power regulator and a little breadboard. So this is a nice size if you're going to be doing Arduino/Raspberry Pi experiments. However, there's going to be people who want to buy from a company that actually is still selling the product.
And yeah, so the other company would be Pelican.
There's
right?
really only one company I can suggest, and that's Pelican. I love Pelican. They are a bit more pricier than what you might find from, say, an eBay sale of discontinued products from Otter, but I mean, it is top notch. It is a little heavier, and I think like this is probably the smallest I'd want to go with a Pelican because they're really small products. I actually had one that was this size.
Yeah.
Is not good.
Is it not waterproof? Like
It's waterproof. It was too expensive for what it did.
Oh, okay.
But these are fantastic because I think this one costs like $25. This is a Pelican 1170, but it comes with the pick and pull foam. So this you just break off the size of the device that you.
Oh, I like that.
You've played with the stuff before, right?
Yeah. No, that's really nice.
So pick and pull foam as you can see, it's subdivided. So you just break off the pieces that match the shape and size of the device you want to protect.
Yeah, you could fit like 4 Raspberry Pis in there.
Precisely, and actually that's what I've used this for. I've got one side that does power. It actually has the battery, the voltage regulator, then maybe my breadboard and my Arduino. So this does make a nice enclosure, and I've actually done these where everything is wireless, so I don't even have to have a hole in the case.
Nice.
Yeah, and you know, if you use an Arduino, it's pretty low power, so.
Yeah, so you can have one big battery in there and for a long time.
Right. I've also wanted, I live next to the ocean, so I was wondering about like putting a bunch of sensors in this and just throwing it in.
And seeing what data you could collect. Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see.
You could track it and then go out later and find it, or if it washes up on a beach, I guess.
Well, Derek, so you've got options. Go play. That's pretty much all we can say.
Cool.
All right.
All right, this next one comes from Reed Hansen. He asks, I just watched your distance networking show, and I thought this would be a good idea to put your cables in. I'm guessing he has a link he wants to show.
Yeah, he's got that link. But yeah, finish up. We'll show it later.
What he wants to use?
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. So he wants to know if, Alex, if you go to that, just scroll down a little bit. There we go. So that is what he wants to use. He from Home Depot, standard PVC Schedule 40 plain edge pipe. This is actually an approach that I see a lot. People think that they'll just lay down some PVC and run fiber through it.
Right.
You could do this. You really could. It would work. I wouldn't suggest it for a number of reasons. One, I don't like PVC Schedule 40 buried because after a while it does become brittle. But that's not the biggest concern. For me, the biggest concern is if I'm working in a backyard and I see white PVC, I always think it's liquid. It's water. That's
right.
What
It's irrigation or something.
There is irrigation. And actually, Alex, if you go to that second link, this is what you should be using. It's Schedule 40, but it's conduit. It's not PVC pipe. This has been specifically designed to carry electrical cable, so it will carry fiber just fine, and it's designed to be buried. Now, the funny thing is, this is actually cheaper than the standard PVC scheduled pipe. Yeah, exactly. So that's $239 each. This one is $225 each. So go ahead and get yourself some of that. Gray, people know that, oh, it's electrical,
right?
Which means they're not going to treat it like they treat it with
an irrigation
liquid.
pipe. Yeah,
precisely. And someone wanted to know how well fiber handles being pulled through conduit. Actually, quite well. The only thing you need to worry about with fiber is you never want to kink it, because what happens is if it kinks and then you pull on the kink, you can actually shatter the fiber, and it will shatter from the point of impact up and down the fiber. So that's no good. So when you're feeding it, you need to make sure you're feeding it nice and easy. Make sure, it's a two-person job really. If you're doing it over distance, one person feeds it, make sure that there's no kinks going into the
doesn't get
conduit.
caught on something. Yeah.
Right. And what I've done, this is actually kind of fun. If you make yourself a little parachute out of a plastic shopping bag and then just cut a piece, and then attach it to string, just standard string. You can take cans of compressed air or a vacuum and reverse it, and you can blow the little parachute through the conduit. And then once it's through, you tie the end onto the fiber and just pull the fiber through.
That's smart. I like that idea.
It's actually fun. It is a lot of fun. Nice. So there you go. If you do want to play with fiber, use the right conduit and make sure you've got a buddy.
Nice.
Yeah. Now, when we come back, we've got a special treat. This is sort of a drone-themed episode, so we needed to show you some of the coolest things that we saw at Maker Faire.
It's probably my favorite.
It is probably my favorite. It is. But before we do that, you know what I want to do, Bryan?
What's that?
I want to thank the second sponsor of Know How.
Oh?
Yeah. Now, this sponsor is known throughout this network because they give us the easiest way to get things onto the internet. Do you have an app? Do you have a server? Do you have the next big idea, the next big thing? Well, don't set yourself up with old standard hardware. Don't get yourself a colo. Don't do an agreement with an ISP to give you bandwidth. Instead, just go to DigitalOcean, the easiest way for developers to get on the internet. Now, whenever you are developing an app, a website, or working on a server-based project, you do need a flexible, reliable, and affordable hosting program. That's exactly what DigitalOcean does with Droplets. These are virtual private servers, and they can be customized and deployed to host websites, web pages, applications, personal projects, virtual desktops, portfolios, pretty much anything you want to put on the internet. Now, that helps you to get your project off the ground quickly, because rather than worrying about the back end, you just worry about making the greatest app, the greatest portfolio, the greatest website possible. It's used by over 600,000 developers, including Twit's Randall Schwartz, Aaron Newcomb, and myself. It lets you deploy and configure your droplets via a streamlined control panel or a simple API. Now, you get to choose your OS. Do you want Ubuntu, CentOS, Debian, Fedora, CoreOS, FreeBSD? Those are all available, along with many pre-configured one-click installs. Things like Drupal, Docker, and Node.js to get up and running quickly. Or you could use root access to get the infrastructure exactly the way that you want, including 100% SSDs in data centers around the world. DigitalOcean is highly scalable to meet the demands of a rapidly growing application or business. You could start with a single droplet on a single CPU with just a single SSD, and then move it up to a deployment around the world on thousands of CPUs on arrays of SSDs, depending on what you need. That kind of dynamic demand is what makes DigitalOcean and its droplets so popular. You could also use features like floating IPs for high availability, for private networking, and automatic deployments via API. But my absolute favorite part of DigitalOcean is the community. The customers, the people who have been using the service come back time and time again to help people who are new to the service. And that's because they believe in the company. And really, that's what I look for. Folks, it's so easy to get started. You can deploy an SSD cloud server in as little as 55 seconds. If you are on the web, there's no reason for you not to be using DigitalOcean. DigitalOcean has incredibly affordable and straightforward pricing, with servers starting at just $5 a month. And there's also hourly pricing available, starting at less than a penny per hour. But we're going to make it so that you can get started today and deploy an SSD cloud server for free. Just visit DigitalOcean.com and create an account. Once you confirm your email and account information, go to the billing section and enter the promo code KNOWHOW for a free $10 credit. That's plenty to get started and explore what DigitalOcean can do for you. That's DigitalOcean.com, DigitalOcean.com. And once you sign up, enter the code KNOWHOW in the billing section to get your $10 credit for free. Get on the web the right way with DigitalOcean. And we thank DigitalOcean for their support of Know-How. Hey, Bryan.
What's up?
I am not a good pilot. I crash.
You're selling yourself short.
No, I mean, I can fly. I can keep it in the air.
Yeah.
I'm pretty good with it. But there's a difference between being good with flying a craft and being good.
Right. Kind of the difference of, I can throw a baseball, I can hit a baseball, but I'm never going to play for the Giants.
Right. It's like, I can drive my car at 100 miles an hour on the freeway, but I'm not a NASCAR driver.
Exactly, yeah.
I probably shouldn't have said that. Someone's going to clip that. Yay. But we wandered over to Maker Faire's new drone racing pavilion to show you the rise of, I'm going to call it, a new sport.
One of the trends we've seen at Maker Faire over the last few years is the rise of the drone, from the hobbyist craft to something, well, different. I'm standing in front of the drone pavilion where you can race if you're part of the Aerial Sports League. I'm standing with Mark Kornblack, who's going to explain what ASL is all about. Mark, we've spoken with you before. You've been into our studio. You've demonstrated everything from aerial combat to aerial racing. Tell me a little bit about ASL.
Sure. Well, ASL started about 4 or 5 years ago, and it was mostly a group of hobbyists. We would get together on Friday night and fight our drones just like an informal fight club. What we found was that the drones that were available back then were really weak, and they would break, and you'd have 5 minutes of flight time and 10 hours of repair time. And so we were dedicated to building drones that could handle the rigors of drone combat games. And while we were doing that, the community around us and the number of pilots who were interested kept growing and growing. And we basically launched the Aerial Sports League as a global community to serve the growing community of drone sports enthusiasts. And about 1.5 years ago, we introduced drone racing into the community. And at that point, it really exploded in popularity. Drone racing has absolutely become the dominant subject when it comes to drones.
What I love about this, being a geek who's been involved with drones for years, is that you've seen the development of the technology. I mean, it kind of parallels NASCAR, where drones started as sort of a hobbyist thing. You found some parts that might work, get you into the air, and then you were happy, and then you started racing them, or you started combating with other drones. Now it's gotten to the point where the motors are better, the batteries are better, the FPV systems are better. So what have you seen as this sport has grown? How has the technology affected what people are willing to do with them?
The most amazing thing about drone racing is how the relationship between the hobby and the development of the engineering go hand in hand. Up until about a year ago, most drone innovation was coming from the top down. Large companies, global companies that had the size and scope that they could innovate. And the camera drone that's ubiquitous in the sky, that was dominating the conversation up until about a year ago. But as drone racing came on board, it was really, the innovations were really coming from small individuals or small groups working out of their garage, that classic like Silicon Valley garage story. And all the innovations are coming from the racers and the pilots themselves right now. And the big companies, the global drone companies, cannot keep pace with the development of materials, hardware, software, the timing systems, everything related to the tracks. All of this innovation is happening from a million points, and it's all these small companies, and essentially they're doing it for the love of it and trying to figure out how to make a living by launching a motor company or a frame company. And it's really exciting to see how the drone industry has been taken over by the little guy.
Actually, that is an incredibly important point, because some of my favorite entities out there aren't the big companies. It's not DJI, it's not 3DR, it's the little guy who decided he's going to start up a shop in his back room, and you get to support the little guy as he develops into someone who's providing a service for the community. Now, the other thing I absolutely love is people will see something like the Phantom 3 or 4 or the Inspire or the Solo, and they'll say, oh, I need $1,000, $2,000, $4,000 to get into this, where you can literally build your own for about $150. That's with everything. But, and I need your help on this, Mark, there's a lot of people out there who are saying, it's fun, it looks cool, but it's not a sport. What would you say to those people?
I would say to them, come and watch what we do in person or watch online some of our streams. Watch the reactions from the crowd. Watch the trajectory of the pilots going from hobbyists to professionals. In the space of about a year and a half, this went from an unknown activity to being a sport where the prize packages are over $1 million already. The race 2 months ago in Dubai, the prize package was over $1 million, and the pilot who won was actually a 15-year-old kid. And so what we're seeing is us older folks, older generations, we've sort of been doing the heavy lifting and the trailblazing to launch this industry so that the youth can actually step in, be the next generation, and redefine this as a sport in the same vein that you see X Games activities going from hobbyists just running around skateboarding into making it a sport. You see parkour going from kids running around jumping on stuff to it turning into Ninja Warrior, a sport. We're at the nexus of this new sport being launched. And in my experience, in 40 some odd years of working in tech, I've never seen anything grow as quickly as drone racing and drone combat are growing. So to them I say, oh, it's a sport.
And bottom line, it takes skill, it takes talent, it takes practice, it takes microsecond reflex reaction times. You can get paid and people will watch. So maybe is it or is it not a sport isn't the right question. The question is it exciting? And the answer is yes. Mark, if they want to find out more about ASL, if they want to find out about drone racing, where should they go?
The first place I would recommend is aerialsports.tv. That's our homepage. From there, you can find out about our community. We have meetups all over the world happening all the time. Every week, every month, there's a meetup somewhere. If you're interested in finding out about the hardware and building a drone, we have all the materials for sale there, as well as all the information that you need to actually start building your own drone. So you can build the drone, learn how to fly it, and find your community, all through aerialsports.tv.
Mark Korenblatt from ASL, thank you very much for speaking with us. And folks, if you want to see the future of sports, it's probably got a drone.
Now, the funny thing about that competition is there were probably 2 or 3 exceptional pilots.
Yeah.
Really good pilots. And then there were a couple who were good. I mean, they were keeping in the air, but you could tell they weren't used to racing that kind of track.
No. And I had the opportunity to, and I think his name was Strix, STRX. Maybe there was a Y in there too. Really nice guy, but he's had talked to me. He's like, I've only been in this for 9 months. Like, I started by watching videos of these things on YouTube, and I got really into it. I started building my own drones. I signed up to do these races, which he had also pointed out that this was like a really tight technical track compared to some of the other stuff that they do, which is mostly outside. But he's like, yeah, when we go full throttle, and you could see his eyes light up when he's like, go full throttle. We got first-person view. It's a ton of fun. So it was cool to watch the races. It was a lot of fun to be able to talk to some of the racers and how they got into it. And then more than anything, I want to just build our own race team now.
Yeah. There is something about, I love punching full throttle. There's a visceral feel.
Yeah.
But when I do it, I can never do it for more than like two or 3 seconds.
Before you reach the full distance.
I've reached the full distance, and like now I'm scared because of what I have to do next. These guys can go full throttle all the way around the track, and you'll just hear them like they're varying their throttle in order to manhandle the craft around the turns.
Yeah, these guys are good.
They're good.
Yeah.
Very good. Which by the way,
what?
Along with your idea of having a team, we have homework for you, know-it-alls. What you need to do. You need to go onto Twitter and you need to tweet out to Hack5Darren, to Snubs, to Don't Try This, Adam Savage, and maybe the Tested guys, and tell them that we need a podcaster team.
Podcast team.
Twit, Hack5, Tested, get us all together and have us go out against the best. I think that's
we might not be the fastest pilots, but we'll outthink you, maybe.
Yes. And we know where the cameras are. So
that too.
There you go.
That doesn't hurt.
Not at all. Before we go, I have a thank you.
To who?
I have a thank you to Clarence. Clarence in
me.
the audience. Remember when we did the pre-recordings, I did that beautiful drawing here.
Oh, all your drawings,
that was
top notch.
Ridiculously confusing.
Right.
Well, that's because I only had white chalk, and I wanted
Was
multiple.
that the problem?
Nope. Well, that and the lack of drawing skills whatsoever.
Couldn't have
So
helped.
Clarence actually sent me, thank you, Clarence, and actually here's a QR code.
Yeah, get really
There you go.
close.
You
That's going to work.
Yeah, I'm sure that'll work. But Clarence said I needed some multicolored chalk. So he sent me an Amazon gift specifically saying, Father Robert, although I was following along just fine, here is your colored chalk for future drawings. Enjoy from Clarence Christian. Clarence, thank you so very much. This goes into the know-how box and it will become our actually, I think your bro needs to add some color to his drawing.
I was telling him that. I think we need to redo the little logos we have behind you
Especially
there.
since now I'm holding a hamburger.
You put a little hamburger in your
I
hand.
don't know why. Actually, that's not a slider. That's a full-size hamburger.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
just
to scale.
I'm just really big. Folks, we know that this was, there's a lot of information that we threw at you. We're going to make sure that you get the links. If you want to know where to find Dronesmith, where to find the Aerial Sports League.
Where to get those parts that we used to build the 250 all that time ago.
Exactly. You just go to our show notes. And where do they find those show notes, Brian?
twit.tv/KH. And not only will they find the show notes, they'll find handy links to subscribe and also be able to go through past episodes in case you did miss our KH250 project.
Boom, yes. And also don't forget you can follow us on Google+. Just go to Google+ and look for Know-How. We've got a shortener, it doesn't always work, so I'm just going to say go to Google+ and look for the group Know-How. We've got over 10,000 users, and it's an active community. So if you've got questions about a build, if you want a build and you want ideas for a build, or if you're an expert and you want to help people who are up and coming in the DIY maker space, just join us, please. And it's probably one of the best ways to get your work on the show.
Absolutely. That's where we get all our questions for the show and stuff like that. And we want to serve you, the know-it-alls. But if you have other questions or you want to see what we're doing when we're not on Know-How, you can follow us on Twitter. I'm at cranky_hippo.
And I am at Padre SJ. And we have a director.
Director.
Man, I haven't seen him for weeks. I think
Hal
his
Grumple.
name is Steven. It was Steven.
Excuse
Steve
me, Padre.
Grumple.
Yeah?
It's pronounced director.
Yes, just follow Director. You can find him on Twitter, twitter.com/ANELF3, and Director will set you straight.
Director.
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 He had to
You
work for
hear
that.
that, Padre?
No,
Director.
I'm not sure.
That's because he has the power to destroy you in his hands.
Yes, I forgot. Yeah. Anyways, until next time, I'm Father Robert Ballecer,
And I'm Bryan Burnett.
and now that you know how,
Go build it. Buzz, buzz.